Hi, everybody. This is William Del Pilar, and this is the Red, White, and Rude. I hope everybody's having a good time. Before we start, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and my other podcasts that you can find on grumblingsmedia.com, as well as YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, y Pandora, under the profile handle Grumblings Media. I am still on an election high. And today we are going to talk about the Democrats and their blind spot on how America views Donald Trump. Then we're also going to talk about MSNBC and CNN's viewership, how it's kind of crashed since the election. And because of that, and the fact that they just are in ratings hell, how CNN prepares to trim the fat. And we'll end the show, we'll close it out with UFOs and the unseen. Whistleblowers shine a light on government's cosmic cover up. Again, I hope everybody's doing well. So let's get right on to it. Okay, now the election is over. Trump won a landslide, blew all the polls out of the water that were completely wrong. In fact, I kept telling people if it wasn't for the fact that I feared voter fraud, I thought this could be a landslide. And it literally was. Now, in my conservative talk podcast Fired Up, we're going to once again be talking about voter fraud as it continues to happen in Pennsylvania, as some of the registrars, the office of registrars, have blatantly said they are going to count ballots that courts have said cannot be counted. Man. But let's get back to this topic at hand. The Democrats' post-election denial. Democrats are failing to understand that Donald Trump is popular. There's a rightward shift in America right now because of the economy, because of inflation, because of the border and the lack of it being secure. But it's also because Donald Trump is likable. Only in America does a man who has never been poor, was brought up in the silver with a silver spoon, can be seen as the working class billionaire. They're failing to recognize that Americans genuinely like and love Donald Trump. You have to remember, before he came down that escalator as a Republican, rappers loved him. They made songs about him. Civil rights leaders all wanted their pictures taken with him. Hollywood had him in many movies in cameos, specifically the Home Alone 2, probably one of his most famous ones. Now, Democrats are all over the place right now. Right now, they're blaming Nancy Pelosi's blaming Joe Biden for not dropping out sooner. There's criticism of Kamala Harris's campaign strategy, including declining Joe Rogan's podcast. Bernie Sanders argues that the party has abandoned the working class voters. There is truth to all of it. First, on Nancy Pelosi and Biden not dropping out sooner. We always thought Biden was a transition president, one and done. I think Jill loved being the White House first lady and kind of push him and force the party into accepting him as the de facto candidate for a second term, and that blew up in their face. Kamala Harris's campaign strategy was abysmal. She went from the lowest rated VP and most disliked politician in recent memory to, oh, we love her. Trump's racist, he's fascist. They were going against the grain. And Bernie Sanders is correct. There were 30 some odd billionaires that supported Kamala Harris and other Democrats, and only a handful that supported Trump. The Democrats have become the party of the rich elitists. I'm a former Democrat plantation member. I used to be liberal. You know, they're doing their best to keep everybody on the plantation. I escaped, my friends. And if I escape, you can too. So why is Trump beloved? Why is he loved? Why is he liked? Well, he comes across as honest. Supporters see Trump's exaggerations as funny. They see him as the real deal from that perspective. His opposition of biological men and women's sports comes across as real. We love his positions on that. Addressing illegal immigration. I mean, that's been his shtick from day one, and he stuck to it, and it paid off. Why? Because American people agree with him. Challenging progressive policies like DEI in the military. Those of us who served, our first thing was like, well, hold on. There are tons of blacks, Latinos, Asians. There's tons of every culture above me in rank. I'm Latino, but all the whites that I know were saying the same thing. Again, the illegal immigration. How many deaths you have to see? How many Ms. Rileys you have to see murdered? Americans did see that, and obviously we've seen the reality of men pretending to be women participating in female sports. So these are common sense issues. And Trump talks down to people, not because he talks down to us, it's because that's how he talks, which means he can communicate to the average person. My issue with academics, I've brought this up to my partner, Big John. It's like, y'all love using big words. Y'all love using these long, drawn, worn out sentences. People are simple. They want to be talked to in a simple manner. Now, that said, we dumbed down our society to levels that scare the hell out of me, and we need to bring them back up. Case in point, when I first started my internet company in the mid 90s, the reading level was at an eighth grade comprehension. Now it's a fourth grade comprehension. So that's not good. However, back to Trump, we love his authenticity. Voters believe Trump expresses his true thoughts. Even his worst enemies can't really deny that. And he's very smart in certain ways. He like his campaign stunt, going to McDonald's. People saw that as genuine and humorous. Even when the press and the Democrats came out, they closed it down. It was all staged. He wasn't really working there. No shit, Sherlock. The guy had 2 assassination attempts. Do you think they're going to sit there and keep a McDonald's wide open? I mean, that's how America took it when the Democrats and the media came out. They had Trump has what you call political capital right now. He has a mandate, so certain things that wouldn't normally pass, he'll be able to get passed. Specifically speaking right now about some of his picks. The media and Democrats, they lost their political capital after the second election of Obama. And that election of Obama, the second one, when it was 0%, not one vote in many Philadelphia districts, Romney did not get not one vote. That's a statistical impossibility. Since the turn of the century, Democrats have been massively using voter fraud, especially with mail in ballots. Al Franken got elected because they kept going to activist judges and they kept finding ballots in cars and parking lots. They kept saying every vote must count, every vote must count. And the judges were like, yes, every vote must count. Al Franken got elected. So I found it ironic and I felt no sadness when he was thrown out of office. It was forced to resign for his own Democrat tactics used against him. So Democrats and the media, they used up all the capital they had. And this cycle, it's gone, and it could be gone, hopefully, for the rest of our history, for the rest of the upcoming elections, et cetera, et cetera. So when they see Trump and they see him talking about immigration, voter fraud, how the election was stolen, we believe him. Me, I've actually done a few podcasts. Check them out. I'm fired up. I've done 3 podcasts so far on voter fraud. I show actual voter fraud cases that have been brought to court. The people have been sentenced. I talk about and show how voter fraud happened since the formation of this country. And we talk about, hey, how the hell does an old white guy living in his basement, campaigning for his basement, get 81 million votes or 82 million, however it was? It's like you see this line, then whoop, for that one election, and whoop. So all of this capital was gone, was done. They couldn't use all of this hate against Trump. They used it all up with Obama and then Biden's first term after all the lies towards Trump. And by 2024, when you struggle to pay your bills, people start to rethink. And when they started to rethink Trump, they started to go, hey, I kind of like this guy. He's not so bad. He's patriotic. At the end of the day, most Americans are patriotic. We've been taught to hate this country. And I got to be honest, para me Latinos and for Black Americans and for you white working class, y'all are your own worst enemy by not taking advantage of what this country has to offer and playing the victim. Why? Because we're taught to be victims. And we're taught to want to live off of government crumbs. Government's not going to take care of us. I had a great job working at the Alzheimer's Association, a nonprofit. Then one day I realized I'm never going to be able to make enough money to go on vacation when I want, to save for retirement, etc., etc. No matter how much I liked the job. So I took the plunge and was scared believless, but started my own business. Sold it for multi-million dollars. Lived the American dream. I'm not rich, I'm not wealthy, but I'm not hurting like the average person. And only in this country could a 5'7" Latino who was too small to play football help introduce a brand new industry that is now a multi-billion dollar industry and employs thousands. American dream. So yes, I am very patriotic to what America affords us the ability to do if we work hard. If we look at an obstacle as that it's just an obstacle, we got to figure out our way around it. I tell that to my partner all the time. I always go, dude, I don't care. It's just an obstacle. How do we get around it? The day we can't get around is the day where maybe we should shut our doors. But until then, every obstacle, how do we get around it? So when they see Trump, they see that he's only the second president to be president, lose his reelection, and come back and win his reelection on his third shot. So they do view Trump as patriotic. Make America great again resonates with voters. And para mí, Latinos and the blacks, the Democrats lied to you, make America great again. He wants to go to the white supremacist way. No, he doesn't. He never did. He wanted to go to the economic boom we had after World War II, the innovation that we had, the whether it was the boom after World War II, the greatness that Reagan brought. He wanted to bring that back, and he did. Gave us the greatest economy. And then when Democrats hate. Then on the 4th of July, you'll see one flag up there. But even then, the last couple of years, they weren't even doing that. They reap the most out of this country financially and enrich themselves with more power while telling you it's a terrible country. While through their own corrupt ways, they make it terrible for us, but they're living large. So their patriotic displays are always seen as inauthentic. And it's due to the past criticism. You may hate policies, you may hate the Republicans, but don't hate the country that's affording you everything you can. Go live in Panama. Go live in Puerto Rico, the two countries where I'm from. And you'll see what I'm talking about. That's what cracks me up. When people talk about, well, William, I'm leaving the country. It gets elected. Good. Good. I want you to leave. Not because I want to be rid of you, because you'll finally learn what you're screwing over here. And as we all know, as I've alluded to this whole segment, the left-wing media Democrats mischaracterize Trump consistently. They just flat out lie. He's a fascist. He's a racist. He's this, he's that. Yet when you look at the Democrats' policies and you look at their own actions to Black America, para mí Latinos, look at the civil rights movement, which they all voted against. The big lie, the Dixiecrat Democrats turned Republicans. Over 300 some odd Dixiecrats, 3 of them became Republican. See, they never go into the data because they know the data is a lie. It was Republicans who freed the slaves, which we fought a war over. It was Republicans who gave women the right to vote. It was Republicans who passed the Civil Rights Act. And for you abortion ladies out there who hate men, always chastise and crap on men, it was 9 SCOTUSes that were all men that gave you Roe versus Wade before it was properly taken out and sent back to the States a couple years ago. The Democrats do what we call project. They project what they do and what they believe onto us. They don't want us to have free First Amendment rights. Be careful what you wish for, people, because eventually that will come back to bite you. Ask Al Franken. His own Democratic tactics got him thrown out. He had a little joke, wonk, wonk, a picture. Wonk. He wasn't touching anything. Didn't do anything. The chickens, I drool coming out. It was a joke in poor taste, but not at the time. Everybody laughed. He was forced to resign because of that. He didn't actually touch it because of his own Democrat tactics for how they use it against Republicans. He eventually, Republicans figure it out. It's like we got Mary Garden did not become SCOTUS because of the Democrats' own rules they broke in a previous cycle to get their own judges passed and to take McConnell used it against them. So you have to be careful with what you wish for. So By this point, all these attempts to portray Trump negatively as a racist, anti-female, authoritarian, they all failed because we all knew what they were, lies. And what happened at the end? Voters gave Trump a mandate to implement his vision. Democrats remain unable to understand Trump's genuine appeal to a significant portion of the electorate because all they see is hate. The hate consumed them so much they fail to see blacks, Latinos, whites. We all went back to, hey, this is why we like the guy. Is he a nice guy? No. Is he a bully? Yes. You don't get to become a billionaire like him without being that type of person, narcissistic, a sociopath in certain ways. There's studies done that people at that level, that's what they are. You have to be that way. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I think there's a lot of truth to it. So I have no issue with who and what Trump is. All I care about from my perspective is the economy, jobs, and we're a country that affords us the opportunity to get out of poverty, to get out of the middle class, to get out of the upper middle class, to become wealthy, we're to become happy, all of the above. So Democrats lost this election in large part to, again, immigration, the economy, healthcare, you name it. But one big reason they're completely ignoring is Trump is likable. Those two assassination attempts, Democrats were privately, yeah, man, got missed, boy. I wish he hadn't missed. Americans were aghast. And then when he raised that fist up, America fell in love with him again. There's a lesson to be learned here. Obama had 95% manufactured love from the media. There's a reason when he endorsed somebody, it didn't help, it didn't work. They'd lose. Because at the end of the day, even blacks turned on him this cycle because they see him for what he is. He's just another politician. Whereas Trump, most of his endorsees, they get elected. Think about that, my friends. All right, let's move on. MSNBC and CNN's viewership. Because who needs audiences when you have echo chambers? All right, MSNBC and CNN experienced significant viewership declines after the 2024 presidential election. MSNBC's viewership dropped 54% in prime time compared to the previous year. For those of you not aware, Comcast is trying to sell MSNBC. I saw a tweet or an X post saying Elon should buy it. Could you imagine Elon buying it? Oh man, they would all quit. Because they're millionaires, they can afford to quit. They wouldn't get jobs anywhere else because the cable's dead with leftist news. The ratings prove that. But I could just imagine the look on Joy Reid's face. You know what? I think it would be great if Elon bought MSNBC. You know why? We could finally figure out what happened with that investigation into her homophobia. She hates gays. She wrote in her blog, I was hacked. No, she wasn't. Experts came out now. We've seen this before. She hasn't been hacked. Yeah. CNN's primetime viewership fell 30% compared to the same period last year. Well, William Cable News is dying. Really? Well, then why did Fox News see a 60% increase in viewership year over year? Fox News averaged 2.6 million total viewers, 375,000 in a 25 to 54 demographic. 2.6 million, 3.8 in the demographic. MSNBC, 596,000, 71,000. Okay, look at this number here. Fox News averaged 2.6 million total viewers per show. MSNBC averaged 600,000 total viewers. 2 million more viewers on Fox News. Then the key demographic, 25 to 54, that's a demographic that buy. That demographic used to be much lower, was not as high as 54. They've changed that since my heyday in marketing. And that partly is because younger people are now less apt to buy as they were previous generations because they just don't have the income. So Fox News, 375,000 in the 25 to 54 demographic. MSNBC, 71,000. Is there any reason Comcast is trying to sell them off? I mean, they're done. MSNBC's done. They're on borrowed time right now because once they're sold, the odds of them being sold to another leftist network is probably slim to none. Another leftist organization, probably slim to none. It's more likely they're going to be sold to a conservative type outlet. Why? Because there's only one big competitor on cable news right now that's conservative. That's Fox. So there's room for another conservative outlet. OAN OAN has been destroyed by the media, and the carriers aren't picking them up. MSNBC is already there, and times are changing. So I see MSNBC selling to a conservative outlet of some kind or billionaire of some kind. I could see Elon Musk buying it. Probably get it for about not even 10 billion. Okay, so CNN. Okay, talking about MSNBC. CNN was even worse. 419,000 total viewers. 4.2 thousand, 419,000 total viewers. Fox 2.6 million. Now, where they did beat MSNBC was in the 25 to 54 demographic. MSNBC had 71,000. CNN drew 91,000. I want you to think about that. These numbers, they're paltry. And they're paying millions. If it wasn't for Big Pharma, Fox would be struggling. And it's going to change. It's a dying world. Streaming is the future. MSNBC shows hit record lows. Alex Wagner had her lowest rated show ever in total viewers. Chris Hayes saw his worst number since May 2016. We're talking shows that don't even hit 1 million viewers anymore. 7 MSNBC shows recorded their lowest Friday ratings of the year. I mean, they're just dying over there. Morning shows were down 36 to 40% at the end of October, heading into November. Morning shows on MSNBC down 36 to 40%. Daytime shows 39 to 55%. So on an average, I mean, about 50%, down by half. Primetime shows down 47 to 61%. And these salaries are not going down. Americans' trust in media has fallen to historic lows. You can only lie for so long before people get tired of it. Democrats had the highest trust. This America. Hold on my notes here. Okay, yeah. So Democrats are no longer trusted, is what my notes were saying. I wrote it down wrong. I apologize. So it's fallen to historic lows. Analysis suggests CNN and MSNBC have lost their influence after failed attempts to stop Trump's victory. In other words, that landslide, they threw everything and the kitchen sink. Nothing. Nothing. Ratings are going to continue to worsen for these networks. MSNBC, Comcast is trying to sell them. And CNN, well, they can't find a buyer. CNN prepares to trim the fat. Who knew hacks could be a job title? Because that's all they have over there is hacks. I mean, Don Lemon is gone. I mean, the guy has no identity. He's struggling to find himself. He's trying to use YouTube. Tried to get a show on X, taking Elon the court because he couldn't get his way. Nobody. I saw Don Lemon's interactions, his engagement. He has like I want to say 1.5 million followers. And his engagement, it's like his likes, few thousand. On a good like 17, 20,000. He has 1.5 million viewers. His reach, his requotes or quotes, in the thousands. I mean, it's you look at his viewers and you realize, oh my God, nobody's watching or listening to this guy's Twitter follower or X following. In essence, he may have 1.5 million followers, but it's just going past their timeline. They're not looking at it. He was one of the first to go last year. I mean, Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer, Anderson Cooper, Aaron Burnett. Nobody watches them. And these people, I mean, just between those 5 names I mentioned, there's probably $50 million right there. 50 to $75 million right there in salary. With Anderson Cooper, I believe, getting 20 million. So maybe 50 million, let's say. CNN is set to lay off hundreds of employees, including major personalities, due to declining ratings and financial struggles. The layoffs are part of a broader restructuring under their new CEO, Mark Thompson, supposedly shifting the network's focus to digital first landscape. That's not a good sign. That means they may be looking at an exit from streaming, from television itself. Who knows? It's losing money. They are not a banner unto themselves. They are under the Warner Brothers Discovery flagship. So there's just one piece of a bunch of businesses, corporations that entity owns, and they're losing money. So during the recent U.S. election night coverage, CNN trailed behind MSNBC and Fox News with only 5.1 million primetime viewers compared to Fox's 10.3 million. CNN experienced a significant decline in viewership with a 40% drop year over year and a 30% drop or decline in primetime viewership. And these salaries come up. Chris Wallace just left. I'm going to start podcast. I'm 77. Inspired by Charlemagne the God. No, he didn't get his pay raise. They weren't going to renegotiate his contract. Once his contract was over, they're going to let him walk. It's terrible over there. High priced people earning a lot of money and delivering nothing. High profile anchors such as Anderson Cooper, Aaron Burnett, and Wolf Blitzer they're not going to may face salary reductions or layoffs. They will face salary reductions and layoffs. Some of these people will be bought. I can see a Wolf Blitzer being bought out or having his role reduced to being a guest spot on various shows until his contract ends. Aaron Burnett, one of the up and comers, has been a complete failure. Anderson Cooper, the face of CNN. I mean, think about it. He's the face. It's not a very impressive face. He's a, he's you don't see Anderson Cooper as an anchor, as a respected journalist. You see him as a gay guy who made it. That's what most people see. A Vanderbilt who came out of the closet. That's what people see. And that's why do I say that? Because that's how he wanted to be seen. That's the cool guy. Again, Chris Wallace announced his departure to pursue other ventures after a 3-year stint with the network. Most people didn't even know he was on there. Mark Thompson's focusing on digital and streaming growth, which is very smart, actually. And he wants to manage the decline of the cable asset without causing a complete collapse of the network. I think what Mark Thompson is seeing is he's going to shift this show completely to streaming, and he's going to reduce these salaries and make it affordable. They're also going to centralize more programming in Atlanta and reduce costly productions in New York City, which I never understood. Part of the mystique, the identity that made CNN, they were out of Atlanta. I mean, they were the big media company that wasn't out of New York City, but they want to be part of the big boys, want to be part of the elites. No. So CNN is facing an identity crisis. They're struggling to define itself between its past straight news coverage and its current we be leftists who pretend to be unbiased perception. Meaning they're a leftist. I mean, Brian Stelter. I'm sorry, I forgot. I believe he'll get whacked again. The guy brings nothing to the table. He reminds me of that fat weeble wobble. Ooh, that's the Wizard of Oz. Ooh, he's a fat little stump of a man. If he is a man, yeah, I don't like him because he's a liar. He flat out lies. Well, the problem with people is they don't know that they read news that's fake news. They don't watch us see what. The network's overall viewership has declined, averaging 413,000 daily viewers compared to Fox News' 2.2 million. So what I just gave the last segment, which exacerbates the financial challenges. In other words, they're not generating enough revenue to pay the current salaries. And Jeff Zucker, the previous guy, didn't care. He said, we don't care because they were on a mission. They'd be a biased leftist network and proud of it. Yet they would turn around and go, no, we're unbiased. Oh, man. So they've tried, but they haven't tried hard enough. Now, here's my take. So they've tried previous efforts to reduce the perceived liberal bias and combat political coverage have been partially reversed. That's not true. That's what people want you to think. The rehiring of Brian Stelter and increased anti-Trump coverage kind of proves me right that they really haven't tried. They want you to think they tried. Now, here's my take. CNN, you could stay on the streaming network. You could actually be a competitor to Fox, but you've got to get rid of all those faces. Anderson Cooper, Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer, Aaron Burnett. Every single face on CNN had to be thrown out. Van Rod, whatever his name is. They all have to go. If you really want people to look at you differently, you fire them all, buy them out, eat them, or minimize their roles completely. You make it so miserable where they resign or they want to buy out at a reduced cost. And you bring in new faces. Because every time we see an Anderson Cooper, a Wolf Blitzer, a Jake Tapper, Aaron Burnett, we see biased leftism. We see a biased ideology. If you truly want to overcome, you've got to get rid of every single person there that is on camera. That's the only way. And then you bring in new faces and you start them with unbiased. Those teleprompters they read, we are now unbiased. How do we know it? Because Horizontal Harris ran a terrible campaign and boom, 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 boom. That one show that Republicans on. What's that show's name? What's that show's name? Let me think. I remember it. CNN Tonight with Abby Phillips. They got to get rid of her. You got to get rid of all these faces. I mean, that show, it's whites and black leftists taking up on the poor Republican who always destroys them with the truth. That's a hilarious thing. And then he holds his own. They will flat out lie and throw the race card that used to shut people in conversation down who just smart. Yeah, okay. Trump still got elected. So, CNN, you want to make this change? You've got to get rid of every face that's in front of the camera, starting with Anderson Cooper, Aaron Burnett, Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer, Abby Phillips, all of them have to go. Bring in new, young faces that are objective. And I guarantee you, your ratings will start to rise. You'll lose people at first. You'll go through a few months of loss, and then it'll start picking up as people start to realize they are unbiased. You'll draw Democrats back in because they won't have anywhere else to go because MSNBC's gone. They're going to probably be bought up by some conservative. So I would strongly urge you to think about it. Hey, I usually charge a few hundred as a consultant. My consulting agency, my one show did not last long because I always felt bad charging people that much. I had a friend of mine call me up once and said, Wait, you're killing me. You're not charging what I charge, and I'm losing business because you're getting it. I just didn't have the heart to charge these businesses, these poor little businesses. Anyway, there you have it. To CNN, you need to listen to what I said. I just gave you what other consultants would charge you thousands an hour for free. Hell, you should hire me. All right, let's have a little bit of fun with my final topic here. There were recent congressional hearings on Capitol Hill. UFOs and the unseen. Whistleblowers shine a light on government's cosmic cover. So there were whistleblower allegations at these congressional hearings. Witnesses at a House hearing claimed the U.S. government has a secretive UFO crash retrieval program and intimidates witnesses who know about it. Now, I remember I was in fifth, sixth, seventh grade. I'd be buying all these UFO books. I knew who J. Allen Hynek was. I knew about Roswell. I did a college oratory project on the Roswell incident when the book came out. The book came out in 1980 or in the mid 80s, 85, or maybe this one came out 89. I can't remember. It was still fairly new in the 80s. And I had people eating. They were asking me tons of questions afterwards, really. And I was pointing out the data, the facts, this, that, that, blah, 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 blah. People are fascinated about this. They love it. I'm a wannabe believer. I'm like, no, no, no. There's too many red flags. And this hearing, the government was saying, go walk away, walk along. There's nothing to see here. In terms, they came out with their own report this past year. They said there's nothing to see here. They tried to tell us that Roswell, oh, that was just nothing but a weather balloon, Project Mogul, weather balloon. No, we're not stupid. So this was the second congressional hearing in 2 years focused on, they call it now, unidentified aerial phenomenon. otherwise known as UFOs and unidentified flying objects. So it was the second time in 2 years, reflecting a shift from viewing this as science fiction to a serious bipartisan issue. Except for the fact the government doesn't want you to think that. They want you to think this stuff doesn't exist. Something's coming, I'm telling you. So, some of the key testimonies, former military officials testified that the Pentagon and intelligence agencies possess extensive undisclosed information about UFOs, including high resolution photos and videos. And we know this. We've seen the TikTok videos. We've seen the pictures now that the government goes, yeah, we can't understand it. Skinwalker Ranch is one of the most popular reality shows on television because they can't answer the question. Crap happens there. You're like, oh man. And they have an actual physicist on there. They have actual government people on there, or former government people. I mean, it's something's happening. It's becoming the question is becoming out in the open. Fox and Motor are becoming believable. Again, the government has denied allegations of intimidation and the existence of a UFO crash retrieval program. That I know is not true. I have seen the documented paperwork, obviously printed in books and magazines and all that from the government, where there are retrieval programs. Now, I'm not saying they went out and retrieved UFOs, but they were created in case. Oh my God. And General Mark Milley says, I'm playing no evidence of aliens or cover-ups because I've been too concerned with the white supremacies in the military. Maybe you should look in the mirror. Mark the Cuck Milley. Mark Milley is the type of general who, when he was out being a bad officer, his wife was being pleasured by a real man. I've seen that happen firsthand. Hell, I remember going to my first bar on base. I'm like, man, look at all these women. I was like, oh my God, it's me like shooting fish in the barrel. From the guy next to me, because I was brand new, young kid. Bro, the aircraft carrier just left. These are our wives. I remember one time being a low man on totem pole, ship coming in, had to go help with the ropes. I forget what they call it. Pulling them in. Then I'm looking around, I was like, oh my God, I slept with her. She's waiting for her husband. She never told me she was married. Then I was like, oh my God, her too. True stories. That's General Milley's wife. She was out there looking for a real man. Oh man. So when Mark Milley speaks, do not forget you're looking at a cuck, a man who couldn't pleasure his woman. So back to the UFO story. Now that I gave you a sidetrack of the military and its women, it's sad. It is sad. Some of the stories I could tell you, you'd be like, "Oh my God." I remember telling some of these stories in the fantasy sports industry because it's like 99.9% geeks and nerds. These are grown men in their 20s, had never really had a relationship with a woman yet. So I'm just telling them stories about the military, fun, this, that, and they're all like, and they were like, they just listening to every word I said. And I looked around, I was like, oh my God. I remember walking out of my job looking at my employees. They're all younger than me. They're all kids. They're all texting. I'm talking to women through text and girls and text. And they hadn't gone out. I was like, oh my God, these guys are in their late 20s. They haven't really, I can't remember when they've gone on a date. We're all tight, as a company, very tight. I got depressed for society. I got depressed for America. I was like, oh my God, we don't know how to have a relationship anymore. Hmm. Go figure. Anyway, let's get back to this UFO. I'm sorry, General. I just don't like Mark Milley. He needs to be court-martialed for having betrayed us and using back channels to talk to China because he was a never Trumper. Before y'all sit there and say, well, Trump's the one who hired him, he had no choice. There were thousands and thousands of appointments he had to fill. He didn't know much about the appointment, much less the people. So he relied on those around him, the Mitch McConnells of the world, the Paul Ryans of the world, the Lindsey Grahams of the world. He's learned. That's why everybody's like, oh, that's outrageous. All these people speak. He's speaking them because he's gotten to know them and trust them. Every business out there will tell you trust and loyalty are the most important factors in their success. And that's how he's looking at things now. So back to this. Witnesses expressed concerns over a lack of oversight in UAP research programs within the Defense Department and CIA, which reportedly operates with off the books budgets. Which makes you think, well, there's no UFOs. The government says, move along, move along, move along. These are the politicians now who are starting to question it. The government itself, move along, move along, move along. And yet they just came out with a report. Tens of billions they can't account for. Goes into these black projects. Lawmakers, including the beautiful Representative Nancy Mace, highlighted attempts. That's right, I said a woman is beautiful. If you're offended, go fuck yourself. Witnesses expressed concerns over a lack of oversight. Okay, I said okay. Okay, so yeah, congressional interest. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. I have them too small. Usually I have them bigger. But including the beautiful Nancy Mace, she highlighted attempts to block the hearing and expressed frustration over being stonewalled when seeking information. See, that's a problem. It's a tail wagging the dog. Nancy, Congress, your body, the House of Representatives, is what funds all this. Maybe if y'all actually did your jobs and didn't fund it, we let the FBI, the CIA, the alphabet agencies, they run over Congress because they become powerful. You can really knock that out of the water. You can knock it out of the woods, impeach a few of them, fire a few of them, don't fund them, bring them to heel, is what I'm saying. So, what are the technological implications about this? Well, Hector Elizondo, he's one famous for TikTok, bringing out TikTok videos. He's made a name of himself the last few years, kind of a fat guy with a goatee. He indicated that both the U.S. and its adversaries are racing to develop military capabilities based off UAP technology, suggesting a covert arms race funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars. And I believe that. Now, here's what you need to tell you: there's no such thing as UFOs. Well, then, how are they creating technologies based off this? Our technological jump from the 1950s has been exponential, faster than any analyst could have ever believed. So, what are some of the notable incidents brought up? Retired Admiral Navy, so retired Navy Admiral Tim Gallaudet, Gallaudet, Admiral Gallaudet recounted an incident where an email regarding UFO sightings disappeared without explanation, suggesting attempts to erase such encounters from official records. Now, on Roswell, what people forget, it was the Army Air Force. Now, before y'all go, wait, there is no such thing as Army Air Force, not anymore. But the Air Force was originally under the Army, you morons. They reported it. We got some. We got some UFO here. Then the generals, whoa, 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 slow down there, little PR person. Send this out. I'm sorry. It was a weather balloon. They still do that shit now. So what's a public perception? The hearing aimed to increase transparency regarding government knowledge of UAPs and potential extraterrestrial life, with lawmakers emphasizing the need for accountability and how taxpayer money is spent on these investigations. Transparency is the key here. Sure, there are secrets that have to be kept, but there's just too many red flags around the world. Too much video, too many photographs that are legit. Something's happening, people. We're seeing more congressional hearings. We're seeing more stories coming out. Mark my words, my friends. Mark my words. So, what have we learned today with the red, white, and rude, which is pop culture? How does pop culture relate to the inconvenient truth of Trump's popularity? Easy. Donald Trump, phenomenon in his day. Rappers made songs about him. He was in Hollywood in cameos, civil rights leader, all the who's who of Hollywood, of the business world, of the political world. They all loved him. The ratings, well, television ratings, it's part of our culture. And streaming is gaining while cable is dying. And when you try to control a nation by using your communication outlets, you're trying to control pop culture, you're trying to control the message, creating false narratives, and it's burning them. And CNN, y'all don't remember, but CNN put streaming, or I'm sorry, cable net news on the map with its coverage of the first Persian Gulf under George Bush, the first George Bush. They were out there. The war reporters, excuse me. Wolf Blitzer became an icon. So I look at him and I go, Wolf, Wolf, Wolf. You once lived up to your name. Now you're like the sheep, a spewing the narrative to control a society when you used to deliver hard-hitting news of a war that was happening. CNN, once a bashing, once a pop culture phenomenon, and had to do the news when Ted Turner built you and owned you. And he was liberal, but he wanted fair and balanced news. And UFOs, come on now. Well, we all know how big UFOs are in the pop culture. So the reason I'm saying all this is sometimes people wonder, William, what's pop culture got to do with politics? Well, everything I said to you is politically related, but politics is downstream of pop culture, of culture rather, meaning our society, our culture shapes today's politics. So this is very important. And with that, do not forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to this podcast. You can find this podcast and my conservative talk podcast, Fired Up. My last two episodes have been phenomenal with my panelists. We've had two great guests. You can check that out called Fired Up. You can also check out my sports and politics, because when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, politics was in sports every day. You know what they were doing just this past week? The Trump YMCA dance on the football field after touchdowns. Oh, NFL. He's got a lot of supporters. And with his reelection, they're starting to come out. Starting to come out. You know, you can check out that. That's called Points on the Board. And then we have Libertarian and we have Pure Play Football and Basketball podcasts as well. You can check those out at grumblingsmedia.com, as well as our social media platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, y Pandora, under the profile Grumblings Media. My friends, thank you for listening. I am William Del Pilar. This is the Red, White, and Blue, Red, White, and Blue, Red, White, and Rude. And until next time, I bid you adieu.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.